Welcome to the Raid Perspective Guide to gearing the Protection Paladin in 4.3. Effectively gearing a Protection Paladin revolves around an understanding of the combat table. Whenever something swings at you for a melee hit, the damage done is based on the position the number is rolled on the combat table. This number is between 0.01 and 102.4. If you're wondering where the 2.4% comes from, that's because the bosses are 3 levels higher than you as a player. The red lines represent how the numbers could land when the boss melee attacks you. So now that we know the numbers can land randomly, we need to understand what it means when they land in certain spots. This is an example of a freshly dinged level 85 Protection Paladin. Protection Paladins have a 5% chance for the boss to miss them. If the server rolls between 0.01 and 5, you won't take any damage because the boss will miss you. After that, the same concept applies for dodge. With this example, if the server rolled between 5.01 and 15, the attack would be dodged. The amount of parry you have goes on top of your dodge. Your block value is added last. Anything left over will result in an unmitigated hit. Taking unmitigated hits will crush you, especially if you're unlucky and take several in a row. Nobody likes a squishy tank, so to avoid that, you're going to want to cap out your combat table. This means you're going to get enough avoidance and mitigation stats so that you'll never take an unmitigated melee hit. Thankfully, Mastery doesn't have diminishing returns. This makes stacking it the easiest way to cover the entire combat table. Once you reach the cap, you need to be careful, because any block over the cap is completely worthless. As you obtain more gear, it will become easier and easier to cover the combat table. When you dodge or parry attacks, you take no damage. When you block an attack, you take a portion of the damage. Because of this, you're going to want to increase your dodge and parry as you reduce your block. You just need to make sure that you continue to cover the combat table. Also, you're going to want to balance out your dodge and parry so that you don't suffer from diminishing returns. In a raid, you'll have several buffs that'll increase your avoidance. These buffs should add at least 1% to your combat table. If you're feeling comfortable with the amount of stamina you have, you can use a strength flask or mastery elixir to increase your combat table coverage. Let's take a look at gearing up. Gearing for the most part is pretty straightforward, but knowing what you're looking for will optimize the process. Before you're able to cover the combat table, you're going to want to aim for as much mastery on your gear as possible. Secondary to mastery will be your dodge and parry. 25% of your strength will convert to parry rating. Because of this, you'll frequently find your parry rating is higher than your dodge rating before you reforge. When it comes time to spend valor or justice points, you'll want to keep this in mind and try to obtain gear that has dodge and mastery on it. Mastery is always your priority stat before your combat table capped. There are some DPS items that have so much mastery on them that they're worth going after if you can't get something better. Stamina will be the same on all gear of equal item level. Strength values, however, will fluctuate. Because strength converts into parry, you need to take this into consideration when comparing two pieces of gear. Having some hit and expertise on your gear isn't necessarily a bad thing, but you're going to want to avoid it when you're first starting out. Let's go ahead and talk about trinkets specifically. Trinkets are one of the most substantial ways to itemize your gear. 4.3 gave us a couple of interesting choices. One of the easiest trinkets to obtain is off the last boss in the Hour of Twilight. If you've covered the combat table, this is a decent choice. When the trinket procs, your parry and block get pushed off to the side, and some of your block will fall off the combat table and become useless. So it's not a bad trinket, it's just kinda random, and you really don't have control over when it's gonna proc. The Soul Shifter Vortex is dropped off of your Saj in the Dragon Soul raid. The problem with this is if you've covered the combat table, this trinket will provide absolutely no benefit when you proc Mastery. This trinket was clearly designed for blood and feral tanks. The only reason you should be equipping this is if you need the stamina and don't mind missing the secondary effect on a trinket. If you haven't covered the combat table, the Fire of the Deep is the first thing you should get with your Valor points. The use effect on this trinket gives you an avoidance boost that you can actually control.
The resolve of Undying is dropped off the spine of Deathwing and is an incredible avoidance boost. The dodge you gain from this trinket should be counted towards your combat table coverage. It won't take long for the dodge to stack, so just make sure that you balance it in with your combat table coverage and also balance it against parry. The last trinket I want to talk about is Indomitable Pride. This trinket can be pretty significant when you're going to take 2 big hits in a row. If you're lucky, this thing might drop off any of the Dragon Soul bosses. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about gems. There's 2 ways you should be gemming, and then a mixture in between. If you're trying to cover the combat table, then you'll want to gem as much mastery as possible. If it's becoming easy for you to cover the combat table, you'll want to gem as much stamina as possible. Regardless of whether I'm stacking for mastery or stamina, I don't like to let socket bonuses go to waste. So here's the list of gems that I use when I'm stacking for mastery or stamina. If you want an epic version of a gem, the prefix is the same for that gem. Alright, let's take a look at enchants. So what I have here is an enchant list for all of your slots. You won't find much variety in your enchants. These are basically your best in slot enchants. There are a couple things you can do to tweak around your gear a little bit. You can go for a DPS enchant on your helm, which will increase your combat table coverage at the loss of stamina. You're going to want to make sure you have the right boot enchantment based on your spec. If you spec'd into Pursuit of Justice, then you're going to want straight mastery. If you haven't, I would recommend getting the 8% movement speed with Lava Walker. Just keep in mind that this won't stack with the talent, so you're either getting the talent or you're getting the enchant with increased movement speed. Earthen Vitality is a cheap alternative, trading stamina for mastery. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about is Reforging. I recommend using the mod Reforged Light. When you have the mod Reforged Light, a window will pop up when you go to Reforge. You'll want to load the presets for Protection Paladin. This will load the default stat weights for Protection Paladin. Reforged Light also factors in buffs, flasks, and food. You can select exactly what your raid is going to bring, allowing you to reforge around those things. The advantage to using a mod like this is it's going to calculate for an optimal result. None of this gear has been reforged, so you can see my combat table coverage within the mod. Beforehand, it's below 102.4. Once I calculate, it's going to balance those numbers. This could take some time. Once my gear's been reforged, you'll see that my dodge and parry chance are very similar, and it's balanced my block just enough to get me 102.41. To make this work, I'm going to want to press the show button, which will come up with another menu. It's going to show me what's been reforged and what hasn't. Down at the bottom, all you have to do is click Reforge and it'll go through your gear piece by piece and automatically reforge it for you. This mod is a very easy way to reforge your gear and optimize your stats. I hope you enjoyed this video guide. Be sure to show your friends and check out some of the other videos I have available. Stay tuned for more raid perspective guides in the future.